What is good, Meat Boys? Yo, real quick, shout out to our latest sub, Chef Mark, and shout out to the other 369 sweaties who are grilling show Meat Boy MMA. Much appreciated. And yo, there is no UFC this weekend, so it felt appropriate for us to get another Jake Paul breakdown in here. We've broken down every single fight thus far. You've been killing the Jake Paul predictions. I have not, but this one should be more interesting than the last ones, and the last two freak shows were pretty fascinating themselves. But Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley's 19-7-1. Obviously, his MMA career, making his professional boxing debut against the problem child Jake Paul, who is 3-0. He's clearly getting better in each fight, and should be fascinating to see how his skills stack up against someone who is actually a proven striker, right? I mean, Tyron Woodley was a guy with KO finishes within his MMA record. And while he's got the wrestling base, he's more of a wrestler with a nice overhand right, as opposed to being like a true boxer. He definitely has better hands than Ben Askren. So very interested to see how this one goes. Jake Paul 6'1", gonna have a slight reach advantage, and is 15 years younger when compared to Tyron Woodley. So what are your thoughts on this Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley matchup? How do you see this fight going, and who are you picking, me?
Yeah, this is an amazing fight. Great fight for Jake. Great fight for Tyron because this should be easy work for him and to get him back on that winning, path where, he's been on such a long, losing streak. And this, if he can't win this, then man, he really needs to hang him up and maybe get back into the rap career. He was pretty good at that, I think. But I just don't think he's going to get it done. I think he's done so. I think he's an absolute bum, bigger than Ben Askren. He's 39. He's a little midget. He's 5'9". I mean, Jake Paul is towering over this guy. He's got more power than this guy. The only thing Tyron does have is he possibly has some heart. But you know what? We've seen every UFC guy break him, so it wouldn't surprise me if Jake Paul breaks him also. But when I say he's got heart to even just step in the ring because he's going to be a laughing stock of the internet when he gets slept by the problem child. I think people are sleeping on Jake. I mean, his net worth is 14 million. Tyron's is a sleazy little 2.8, so he's got a lots of room to grow with. But with that kind of capital, I think Jake can really get the best trainers, the best nutritionists, and really become an absolute physique monster in the boxing community. And I think he's going to sleep Tyron in the first or second round.
You think he's gonna end up putting out Tyron Woodley, eh? Because I'm very curious to see, what the power of Jake Paul looks like against Tyron, who, is a guy who's been in there with, heavy power punchers already, right? I mean, this is a guy who knocked out Robbie Lawler, right? He took his belt. He was in there with Vicente Luque, and granted, he got finished, but I mean, these are dudes who can crack. So, do you think that Jake Paul is gonna put him out?
Yeah, I think he's gonna put him out. Jake Paul's bigger than all those guys. Maybe not Vicente, but we saw what happened when Vicente touched him. He got a little loosey goosey, then got tapped. But I think Jake Paul's a big dude, and I think Tyron is very underestimating him. I mean, he's 39, and it's like what Dana White says. He has not won a fight in years, and he's a 40-year-old man, and he's just on the down come. And this is a money grab, nonetheless. It's just like Ben Askren. Like, how did Ben not prepare for that fight better than what he did? It's like how he saw Freddie Roach for 2 days. Once I heard that, I was like, oh, he's not taking this serious. He doesn't care. Ben just so used to wrestling. Tyron Woodley is just so used to overhand right, overhand right. They're thinking about his takedowns that he never even does. And once people realize that he doesn't shoot or do anything besides overhand rights, it was a clear, easy wins for all of his opponents in the UFC. But Jake Paul, I mean, he's just gonna stay right behind that jab. Tyron, I really doubt he even throws a jab, and even if he does, Jake Paul, I think will have the speed and the distance to keep him in control. The only chance Tyron has is to go out there like a madman the first round and make it really dirty and try to put him against the cage and try to hit him with like a dirty uppercut or overhand while they're kind of clinched. But I don't know. Tyron's a small dude. Like, I mean, he's 5'9", and he's a true 170, 185er. Jake Paul's 205 cutting down a little bit, so he's gonna be the bigger man in this. And yeah, I just see Jake beating him. I'll never pick for Tyron ever since he lost to Usman, and I'm sticking by that.
And you mentioned the size of Jake Paul, and I caught some interview today from Faraz Sahabi, and Faraz Sahabi was saying he's speculating that Jake Paul's on the sauce. Do you think there's anything to that? I mean, there's obviously not going to be, some stringent USADA testing going on here, and we don't have any evidence to suggest one way or the other. But I found it fascinating that Faraz Sahabi would stand by a statement as bold as that, saying that he thinks Jake Paul is on a concoction of PEDs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting statement, and for him to say that, he either must know some inside scoop or he must be an ultimate Jake Pauler hater. I would definitely be careful of throwing accusations like that around because he doesn't look like he's on the sauce physically, but of course, Luis Gonzalez didn't look like he was on the sauce, and he was absolutely dropping bombs back in the day. So anything's possible, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially if they're not doing drug testing, that would rise like a little sus. But if that's the case, why wouldn't Tyrone get on the sauce too? I mean, he can get his 20-year-old body back and his like physicality and cardio, but I just don't see it happening. I think he's in a two pump chomp, throw some meat bombs. Jake's gonna be chilling, and then Tyrone will, brittle away like in every other fight for the last couple years.
Yeah, this one's tough for me because I'm not a I'm not a Jake Paul hater. I think the dude has some legitimate skills. I think he's clearly improving every time we see him. But in this contest, I got to go with Tyron Woodley. I got to go with the chosen one. I want to believe that the chosen one is in fact the chosen one to end this Jake Paul hype train, or at least derail it temporarily. And he's a plus 145 dog, and Jake Paul getting a lot of love from the odds makers as a minus 175 favorite. But I'm just hopeful that, Tyron's going to be able to weather the storm, maybe get on the inside. And I just think he's going to crack him once, and maybe that will shift the dynamic of the fight. I'm not convinced that, Tyron's just going to knock him out with an early YOLO meat bomb, but I think that maybe if he lights Jake Paul early with something heavy, that I don't know, maybe we'll see a different version of Jake Paul because, the old Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And we haven't really seen Jake Paul get punched in the face since he was bloodied up by Deji in his debut, but that was years ago, but pre Jake Paul skilled boxer era. And I don't know. I have a feeling that if Tyron Woodley gets him early, that maybe it'll shift the dynamic. Maybe it'll allow Tyron Woodley to win a decision, or maybe overwhelm him with strikes if Jake responds in a sort of timid fashion. So it's not the most bullish pick. I've never gotten a Jake Paul prediction correct. So obviously, Meat Boys, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt because you clearly have had a greater pulse on this Jake Paul showcase than I have. But nonetheless, in this one, I'm falling in and out of love with Tyron Woodley. So I got to go with the chosen one. So any last thoughts on this breakdown, Meat?
No, I'm actually really excited about this fight, to be honest. It's kind of funny how Jake Paul's kind of revamped and made boxing alive again. Like, people are interested in boxing. You have all these social media people doing boxing. You got Mike Tyson, all these legends coming back and stuff for all this hype. And Jake Paul's selling the pay-per-views, so props to him. And I'm pretty pumped. I hope Tyron gets it done. I hope he proves me wrong because he hasn't for the last, I don't even know, 5 years or whatever. But yeah, I hope I'm proven wrong, and I hope I lose my bag that I'm betting on Jake.
Or it should be interesting. Hopefully, it's a close competitive contest. And if it's not, and Jake Paul ends up bodying another guy, then let's take it to the next step. We'll see who comes up next. Maybe Conor McGregor wheels himself in there, and that's the next matchup down the road. It doesn't seem too crazy given how this has gone thus far. So good stuff. Meat, yo, if you made it this far, grill that slap subscribe button real quick. Continue grilling and chilling with Meat Boy MMA, and stay tuned for the next vids.
Yo.